I'm Max Keiser.
I'm Stacy Herbert.
Hey, Sweet Pea. So, let me explain something. This guy, Alex Schaefer, before, he was an unknown artist. Now, his work is acclaimed and in demand all over the world. This burn chase portrait, $25,200 on eBay. There's no let-up in demand for burning banks. Stacy Herbert.
Max, that's because he's exposing the confidence game happening around the world, and that's one of our big themes of the show today. First headline reads, Goldman head gold trader speculates about authority intervention in gold, sees precious metal pushing higher. So this is Zach Dabalia, and he's the head gold trader for Goldman Sachs, and he's referring to when the Swiss intervened in their currency market. And the Swiss franc, of course, is a classic safe haven currency. So he said the expectation would be, of course, that gold would rocket on that. But in fact, in the immediate aftermath, was in complete contradiction to prior recent episodes of intervention and what anyone would have expected. Instead of spurring a further gold price rally on the basis that it was one of the few remaining safe haven currencies, we saw a $50 collapse in minutes. The source of this flow seems hard to pin down, with some speculating over whether authorities were concerned about the signals of an accelerating gold price and its impact on other fragile markets. Soon after, much of the losses were recovered, but the psychological damage had been done.
Well, gold did skyrocket against the Swiss franc. And also, this is World War III. It's gold versus paper. It's authenticity, like gold, versus inauthenticity, like the American paper empire. It's about a new century with new values. And it's about a country like the U.S. with only paper behind it crumbling.
Yes, but it's also part of that confidence game. In order to maintain confidence of the U.S. dollar, everything else must have no confidence. People must lose all confidence in all other things, including gold, which has been a safe haven for 5,000 years. So America is trying with all its might to try to destroy the entire system as we've known it for 5,000 years.
Yeah, when I say nothing behind the U.S. but paper, people will say, oh, they've got 8,000 tons of gold. But keep in mind that you've got a bank like J.P. Morgan. They have sold short the equivalent of many, many, many times that 8,000 tons of gold and silver to support the dollar. So when all the claims are made whole, J.P. Morgan goes the way of Enron to zero, the Fed goes out of business, the U.S. goes into history.
And the other interesting thing here is that many gold analysts around the world claim that it's a conspiracy theory to think that the U.S. government or the CME or COMEX would intervene in the gold market. But here is Goldman Sachs, one of the biggest gold traders in the world, one of the biggest commodity traders in the world who know these markets, and they're suggesting that there is government intervention.
Right. Goldman Sachs is now agreeing with Gold Antitrust Action Committee, GATA.org, which for years was in the wilderness. People said, oh, it's a conspiracy theory. Now Goldman Sachs, mainstream online schmatas down there on Wall Street are saying, yes, in fact, GATA is correct. The price of gold is manipulated by the paper whores.
And of course, in every single war, there's psy-ops, and that's exactly what this man at Goldman Sachs refers to as a psychological damage. And I want to show you a quick headline in a response to earlier this week when gold fell $50 in a matter of minutes. Joe Wiesenthal said, yow, look what gold just did. So that's the psychological impact they're looking for.
Joe Wiesenthal is the propaganda minister over there at BusinessInsider.com. He puts out propaganda.
No, it's not true.
You didn't say, oh, look at
Max,
look at the franc crash.
You're wrong. If he were putting out propaganda, he would be working at the Treasury or at J.P. Morgan. In fact, he is the person who listens to Baghdad Bob, and it's like, oh my God, reporting it in The Guardian and saying, Baghdad Bob says the infidels are being slaughtered at the walls of Baghdad.
Well, if Joe Wiesenthal's not the propaganda meister over at Business Insider, then his overlord, Henry Blodgett, is. Henry, how come you don't come on the show? You keep turning away my invitations, Henry. Come on, be a man.
Okay, well, let's look at some more wars going on. Gaddafi regime sold $1 billion of gold. Well, these are the allegations of Kassim Azzouz, the new central bank governor, who said that Gaddafi regime raised more than $1 billion to pay salaries from trading 29 tons of gold with local traders in April, with the metal then possibly being taken out of the country for resale.
So they paid, essentially, the soldiers in paper because they sold the gold, right, to raise...
Well, this is what Kassim Azzouz, the new central bank governor, put in by Sarkozy, Blair, Cameron, and America. So he's their guy in the central bank. And he's saying, it looks like Gaddafi sold 20% of our gold, 29 tons. Now, we're taking at his word that it didn't just go missing, because remember, we, Zero Hedge, others, as the invasion was happening, we said, what's going to happen to Libya's gold?
Well, Gaddafi's still alive, isn't he? This should be a lesson for you out there thinking about buying gold, number one. Number two, he sold his gold for paper, and then he paid his soldiers in paper. So those soldiers are complete idiots if they took paper instead of gold. The whole history of gold, as we learned from our show...
With David Graeber.
Yeah.
He said that gold always comes back into use as a currency because it's used to pay soldiers. So America's trying to tell us it's a psyops, that in fact... In this case, they don't want gold. The soldiers didn't want gold. They wanted cash. They wanted U.S. dollars.
Terrible.
But again, you know, the article mentions and points out, this is from the Financial Times, that Gaddafi was unique, Libya was unique, in that their central bank actually held their gold in their country, unlike Chavez, they point out. So this is another theme we're talking about all the time, is that many of these nations around the world, including Germany, China, and Chavez were holding their gold in America, and whether or not they'll ever get that back.
Right. Chavez wants 200 tons of gold shipped back to Venezuela, 100 tons at the Bank of England, 100 tons held by banks like J.P. Morgan, and if he actually delivered that gold, J.P. Morgan, once again, stock price, zero.
So let's stay with Libya here. Tony Blair's Libya policy fueled power obsession of Gaddafi's son. Again, this theme of the confidence game. Tony Blair, snake oil salesman, went to Tripoli, brought in Gaddafi and his son to pretend that they were we're giving you our confidence. You're part of this game. Saif al-Islam, you know, as NATO is dropping bombs on him, who is he shouting at? Sarkozy, not at Blair. He still is a victim of a confidence game where he still believes the guy who sold him out is somehow Sarkozy and not Tony Blair.
You know, Tony Blair, if push comes to shove, he should start selling those nut choppers on late-night TV. You know that guy Vince? He's a famous seller of tchotchkes on late-night TV. If he ever retires, get Tony Blair.
You're going to love my nuts. Watch this. So easy, one finger. If I can do it with one finger, you guys can do it with your whole hand. The reason you're going to slap away every day is because it's so easy to clean.
So the confidence game sold to the West and to the people financing it, the taxpayers of the West who think they're getting something, is they're told that Gaddafi and Saif al-Islam are uniquely crazy madmen and dictators and killers. And, of course, information has emerged that we were sending people there to be tortured over the past few months, including up to a few days before the regime, we decided to topple them.
That's right. I mean, that's kind of a new revelation, isn't it? Because we knew about Egypt and these other areas where U.S. sent people to get tortured. We didn't know there's actually happening in Libya as well. So, you know, America likes to outsource everything, all the workers, all the work, all the jobs, and all the torture. You know, give those torture jobs to Americans. Why outsource? You know, keep those torture jobs inside America.
So, but the story to the Westerners is always that we're protecting the rebels, we're protecting the freedom fighters of Libya, and it has nothing to do with their oil. We are pure people here. So let's turn to this headline, Turkey to escort Gaza aid ships amid row with Israel. Well, this is Turkish Prime Minister Erdogan, and he's saying that his country is now going to escort Gaza aid ships. And that's the headline chosen here by the BBC. But the rest of the story, I think, reveals the true nature of this religious war going on. Speaking to Al Jazeera, Mr. Erdogan also said Turkey had taken steps to prevent Israel unilaterally exploiting natural resources in the eastern Mediterranean. It appears that Israel has decided to recognize Cypriot rights to the natural gas reserves that are allegedly have been found in the eastern Mediterranean. And now it's a resource war all throughout the Middle East, really. It's about their oil, natural gas, and water.
Yeah, and it's also interesting that the IMF funds finding their way into Greece, seemingly were contingent upon Greece shutting down the flotilla of boats from leaving the port of Athens to go to Palestine.
So continuing on with this theme of confidence men, especially those guys operating from J.P. Morgan. One-man lobby. Diamond presses Washington to ease bank rules. This is Bloomberg series, The Influential 50. And this article here is just amazing to read because it's paragraph after paragraph after paragraph of quotes talking about how fantastic Jamie Dimon is. And they come from people like Hank Paulson, and they come from people like some lawyer dude from a Wall Street firm that represents Wall Street bankers. And it says things like, when Treasury Secretary Henry Paulson needed someone to save Bear Stearns from collapse in March 2008, he turned to Dimon.
We've got Dimon. We've got Dimon by the short and curlies. He needs the entire regulatory infrastructure to change to allow his bank to go even deeper into debt to support his naked silver shorts. We've got him. As silver price goes higher, Jamie Dimon is panicking. That stock is like Enron right before it collapsed. Mark my words, hedge funds out there, sell it short, make a bundle.
Well, so continuing on this piece about how their fluff piece on Jamie Dimon. Dimon emerged from the financial crisis a born-again hero. His bank took $25 billion in aid from the U.S. Treasury out of patriotic duty, not because it needed the money.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the bailout nation of America. Please send me $1 billion, and I'll salute you every morning. Thank you, and have a nice day.
And then it goes on. They then compare him to J.P. Morgan's company's namesake, John Pierpont Morgan. Dimon was heralded as the lender of last resort when other institutions faced a run on their assets.
That's a ridiculous comparison. J.P. Morgan, the big guy, that was his money.
Yeah.
And Jamie Dimon has access to borrowed money. He's a facade.
Exactly. Well, that he has access to the taxpayers' AAA rating to borrow at 0% from the U.S. Treasury and the Federal Reserve Bank on behalf of the U.S. taxpayer.
Oh, you mean AA plus?
AA plus.
All right. Stacey Herbert, thanks so much.
Thank you, Max.
Don't go away. Much more coming away. Stay right there.